Good morning. A very warm welcome from Maritime Gateway. It's a really warm welcome in true sense because we are passing from winter to summer. Today it is 29 in Hyderabad. So welcome to the first webinar of Future Fuels on decarbonizing shipping issues and challenges. Before I touch upon the importance and focus of the this webinar, I would like to dwell maybe 1 or 2 minutes on what Maritime Gateway and what Future Fuels is, and then maybe there are a lot of new participants with us today. So for them, as an organizer, I would like to introduce ourselves first and then get into the webinar. So I'm Ram Prasad. I'm the editor-in-chief of Maritime Gateway and Future Fuels. So we have started this initiative 13 years ago to be a knowledge partner to all the agencies and organizations working for the promotion of the maritime sector, and also to facilitate informed and intelligent decision making by providing valuable and authentic information to meet the uncompromising standards of excellence. So as I mentioned, we have been publishing this magazine for the last 13 years. We have connected several governments with trade associations and industry partners through our content, research, and various discussion forums. Today, we have a very active reader network, not only in India, across the world, especially in Middle East, Europe, South Asia, Southeast Asia. Over the period of time in the last 13, 14 years, with our interaction with the industry, now we have a deep knowledge of the domain and market insights to create the value chain. So these are some of the forums that we have been organizing during the last decade on container shipping. We have involved all the CEOs of maritime sector for a high-level dialogue. And then to connect the hinterland, we had done a series of smart logistics summits in deep into hinterland like Bhubaneswar, Amaravati, Bangalore, Nagpur. This is to connect the exporters, importers with the trade. And South Asia Maritime Logistics Forum is essentially to increase the bilateral trade among South Asian nations. So this is just a glimpse of what we have been doing. This is Containers India, which is an annual forum. We have been doing a physical event till the COVID, and last 2 years we have been conducting this as an online event. These are our most prestigious awards where industry participates. Again, we have suspended last 2 years because of COVID. This is the first ever India-Nepal Logistics Summit we organized, where even the Prime Minister and the senior level bureaucrats and the entire trade participated in Kathmandu. This is another prestigious event, South Asia Maritime and Logistics Summit, which we held in Dhaka. I was told that this was the first logistics event in Bangladesh, where 600 to 700 key delegates participated. Madam Sheikh Hasina, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, inaugurated, wherein an Indian shipping minister as well as from Sri Lanka also participated in this, the 3 countries actively. So after 13 years of this experience into the maritime sector, understanding the dialogue that is happening across the world on decarbonization, the journey towards net zero, various governments announcing these initiatives of decarbonization, IMO regulations coming to practice. We have seen there is a lot of gap areas in understanding the what is happening with decarbonization. There are a lot of questions which all of us are trying to find answers. So we thought, at least as a media, we will try to put a lot of this content together and then disseminate several policy initiatives or the technology innovations that are coming up in this sector, what different key stakeholders are doing in their effort to reach decarbonization. So if all of this information is distributed across the sector, then at least we will try to find solutions collectively. So with that thought, we have started this Future Fuels magazine 3 months ago, and then we have seen two issues we have published. We also have a portal where we have this curated collected content is available 24/7 to the users. We also have this newsletter which is sent to all the stakeholders right now, currently to a database of 8 to 10,000. We have been reaching on a daily basis with all the latest updates on this initiative. So coming to the webinar, as I mentioned, this is the first webinar of the series that we wanted to do. When we conceptualized this initiative, originally we thought we will hold a physical event in Mumbai, but somehow during that time still this Omicron was hovering around, and our industry experts suggested that at least the first webinar, first event, let us do online, maybe post April or May. When things get better, we can get together physically. So that's why we have chosen to be an online event. And thanks to all the associations which have supported us in this initiative, Foreign Ship Owners Representatives and Ship Managers Association, FOSMA, INSA, Indian National Ship Owners Association, the Company of Master Mariners of India, CMMI, Maritime Association of Ship Owners and Ship Managers and Agents, MASA, ICC Shipping Association, and the Institute of Marine Engineers, IMEI. So all these associations instantly came forward to support this initiative, suggesting topics and speakers. And especially I am very thankful to Captain Mahesh Yadav, who has been coordinating a lot of these speakers. Captain Bhasin and Anil Devli, CEO of INSA, also extended a lot of support in suggesting what we should be talking in this webinar. And finally, Mr. Indra Bose, when he came back from US, within short available time, he also connected with all the speakers. And then we, all of us collectively, we have put a lot of these topics which you see on the screen, what Indian ship owner should be doing when he is at the crossroads of a lot of options available, a lot of challenges that are in front of him, how the technology will change, what is the kind of policy support that we require from government, and then what is the quality of marine fuel that would be coming up. Are there any interim strategies before the net zero goals that we reach, any shortcut methods that we can adopt? So a host of issues are there. So I'm not getting into the details because you have a wonderful set of panelists and 2 sessions which are awaiting to share their insights on this webinar. I also thank Fuel Spec, which is a catalyst. It's a product which can be used as a fuel additive to improve the fuel emissions and increase fuel efficiency. So they have also came forward to support this initiative. I thank them. So with these few words, I will introduce the first session of the webinar. Then I hand it over to moderator, Mr. Anil Devli, who will conduct the session. So I'm glad to inform you that currently I have about 160 delegates logged into this session, eager to listen to all the panelists. So today we have, these are the set of panels that we have with us. I am not getting into the reading of the profiles because they are experts in their own domain and they are well known to the industry. And these profiles are available on our website, so you can later get into the details. We have Mr. Indranath Bose, who is the advisor to the Great Eastern Shipping Company, 50 years of experience in the maritime industry. Then we have Mr. Vijay Arora, who is the managing director of Indian Register of Shipping, IR class. Then we have Captain Mahendra Bhasin, who is the chairman of BASA, and also who is the managing director of MSC Crewing Services Private Limited. Then we have Jitendra Nimagadda, who is the CEO of Vishwasamudra Group. He heads the maritime related businesses of the group. Then we have Sachin Kulkarni, who is a mechanical engineer from II, Indian Institute of Materials Management. He is the head of marine business for South Asia from Vatsila. Then Mr. Mukesh Kumar, he is the fleet personnel manager of Bernard Schulte Ship Management. Then finally, we have Mr. Anil Devli, who is a well-known face on the Indian maritime landscape, who is the CEO of INSA. So with these introductions, I hand over the session to Mr. Anil Devli.
Thank you, Mr. Ram Prasad. I'm not going to stand between this galaxy of persons in the panel 1 and panel 2, but I would be failing in my duty if I did not thank Future Fuels for this effort. It is exceedingly important for us as not just as ship owners, but even as citizens, to ensure that we move towards reducing our carbon emissions. And we in the shipping industry have taken a lead to do what needs to be done. During the course of these discussions, we will try and pass as much information as possible to all of you, because as you can see, most of the persons here are technical experts. I would just like to reiterate some general guidelines for the guidance of all speakers. As Mr. Ramprasad said, you are free to put forward a presentation if you so desire. I would request that each one of you limit your initial remarks or your presentation to a maximum of about 5 minutes initially. After we finish the first round of remarks and presentations, we can then try and initiate some discussion and panel discussion, through which we will try and answer some issues that come to my mind or that come to the mind of a participant here. And just a request to kindly stick to your allocated time. I will definitely interrupt if you are exceeding beyond your allocated time, and please don't mind my doing so. So without any more delay, let me invite the senior most person amongst our list, our Mr. Indranath Bose, who also happens to be the chairman of the INSA Technical Committee, to say his introductory remarks, and we will then take it from there. So over to you, Bose.
Thank you, Mr. Devli. First of all, I would like to commend Gateway Media for organizing this particular seminar and bringing an awareness among everybody, all the stakeholders of this important journey for decarbonization. Now, what I would say that, the United Nations, they have a body called IPCC. So they have said that the whole world economy must decarbonize net zero by 2050. So in line with that, IMO and ICAO, we are responsible for international shipping and international shipping and aviations. They are revising their strategy that how to reach net zero by 2050. Net zero means that it is inevitable that some fossil fuel will remain in 2050. Actually, IPCC report itself had said there will be, but there will be negative emission. That means you suck out CO2 from the atmosphere, and that negative emission will continue. So in that direction, IMO is revising their strategy, and it is going to be I mean, we have to move over our ships into zero carbon fuels or lower carbon fuels. And it's an immense challenge before the industry. And as a ship owners, it's huge amount of risk because you have invested on ships with the thinking 25 to 30 years of life. And now the policies are coming that decarbonization is required. So the fleets of about 30,000 of large merchant ships and 100,000 vessels around the world. So they have to reduce their carbon footprint. And each vessel has got a lifetime. So some of the existing vessels have to be retrofitted sometime in the futures, in 30s, 40s. So that brings a huge, huge challenge. And these zero carbon fuels do not exist today. And a lot of research is required. So I will just leave my introductory remark at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, both sir. I would now request Shri Vijay Arora to give his introductory remarks, please.
So, good morning to everyone. I thank the organizers of Maritime Gateway and Future Fuels, along with the supporting organizations, for giving us the opportunity to discuss or to share our thoughts on the issue of decarbonizing shipping and issues and challenges. So this anything which starts with a strategy, and if you look at IMO has been working on how the various emissions which have been there in the atmosphere have been controlled over a period of time. We talks about NOx emissions came, tier 1, tier 2 requirements came, then it came to sulfur, desulfurization, and later on it came out this IMO strategy on decarbonization and saying that how we can further improve the GHG emissions. So this IMO strategy was adopted in April of 2018. The vision was to phase out GHG emissions from international shipping as soon as possible in this century. And to achieve this, we desired that the combination of factors was taken into account, that carbon intensity should improve by improving the EEDI. Then we should reduce the CO2 emissions by 40% by 2030 and 70% by 2050, and to reduce the GHG emissions by 2050, all compared to 2008 levels basically. So to achieve the vision, there were short-term, mid-term, and long-term measures adopted. Short-term measures were from 2018 to 23. 23 to 30 are mid-term, and 230 onwards will be long-term measures basically. We are currently in the short-term measures, and when we look at those measures basically, we can see that if you recall, in 2018 we came out with something, SEAM Part 2, which talked about how the fuel consumption should be collected, and 2019 we started collecting the fuel consumption. And then in 2020, we have talked about that how the new ships, the EEDI phase can be advanced, and that is how the new ships are helping us to see that the CO2 emissions can be reduced. At the same time, we are coming out in 2023, where EXI and SEAM Part 3 are coming out, where in EXI we'll be using the IMO fuel consumption data, which is available with us, and to see that the carbon intensity indicator will be used to see that how both existing ship and the new ship combined together are able to help us achieve the 40% reduction of CO2 emissions by 2030. So this is talking about the various phases of reductions which were applicable for EEDI, mostly from the new ships. Basically, the success started from 2013. The efforts are on since 2013, and the efforts are on the direction that how we can reduce the CO2 emissions by designing ships in a manner that the fuel consumption is reduced. And as stated in the IMO strategy in 2018, the phase 3 has now been advanced to see that there are certain ship types of larger tonnage will be requested to see that they start building ships in a manner that the CO2 emissions are reduced. And this advance from phase 3 to phase will take place from April of 2022, where such ships, maybe gas carriers, container ships, will be advised to see that they have further reduction factors of 30% applicable basically. as just stated that the combination of new ships and existing ships will continue for some time while we are using fossil fuels, and new ships are being designed with the higher reduction factors. Even the existing ships need to see that they catch up with the new ships basically. And for that matter, IMO came out with the regulation, which regulation states that ships of 400 GT and above, and certain ship types which are mentioned regulation 25, and if their threshold value is greater than certain dead weight, then they are subjected to this regulation basically, and that is how the attained EXI will be calculated. The required EXI will be calculated, and we'll be comparing that attained EXI should be less than the required EXI to see that the ships are issued the technical file and they are issued with the International Energy Efficiency Certificate. This will be mandatory. This will be mandatory from initial from the 1st January 2023, coming on any annual intermediate renewal survey falling due after this date. But the regulation will become effective from 1st November 2022. I would like to little reinforce on this issue that 1st November 2022, I think that date is basically a very important date. By this date, the ship owner should ensure that this technical file, if it is possible, can be placed on board to see that the technical file is placed on board. And if in case the PSC boards the vessel, you have a technical file available with you. And then IEC can be issued when the surveyor boards on board after the 1st January 2023 for whatever first survey falling due. So this is talking about attained and required EXI, which I talked about. Here I have just given information as to what all documents are required, what all parameters required for submission for calculation of attained and required EXI. They on the screen. Specific fuel consumption is required, engine power is required, capacity and deadweight and reference speed is required, and conversion factor is required. For calculation of the attained EXI, required EXI has a formula which talks about that we need to have the reference line value and the reduction factors are available. Here, the important point is that the reduction factors for EXI are compared to the phase 2 of EDI. That means today's ships which are going to existing ships, they have to match with the EDI of those ships which are built with the phase 2 requirements, which is a very difficult task, but the owners have to do that basically. Here, a little more difficult task is that if the ships are built before 2013 and if they don't have the sea trial report, then there are little issues basically. But yes, those issues can be resolved where if in case either you can opt for the option that approximate value can be used, or you can go for the CFD analysis. Approximate value helps you, but it is not so encouraging for the ship owner because the attained EXI goes on the higher side by which the ship owner is affected. But if the CFD techniques can be used to really determine the B reference because which is not available, then the ship owner is at least he is not affected sadly basically. So these are few other situations which can help us to, if the attained EXI is not less than the required EXI, everybody is aware of engine power limitation, then we can always superimpose certain fixtures like bulbous bow, or we can put some boss cap fins, or we can adopt for air lubrication systems. So these are energy saving devices which are available, which can be used if in case attained EXI is coming to be greater than the required EXI basically, or we can use combination of factors also. Here again, I like to say a few things basically, which is important, that let us be very clear that if in case we are able to meet EXI today, it is good. But you have to meet CII also for all the times till the time you are going to operate these ships. So it is always better to improve your attained EXI to larger extent so that the design itself takes care of your operational efficiency, because the ships are old, they cannot operate more efficiently than what they are operating today. You can control to some extent, but if in case you can bring such energy saving devices fitted on your ships, you will be able to run these ships for a larger period, because the CII will be then this design efficiency will give you a factor in the CII part basically. So this is again for the use of the industries, the people who are going to sail on board, because EPL when used, basically the EPL if used, it is not that you cannot override it. You can override it in certain situations which are mentioned in the onboard manual. Basically, it could be adverse weather condition, it could be rescue operation or avoidance of pirates, and in those cases you need to record in the onboard manager manual, and then you have to inform the administrator, the RO, to see that you you did use it, and at the next port you see that you bring back to the normal. And records which are required to maintain the OMM manual are listed over here, which you can always, when the onboard manual will be there, they'll be referred to this. So this is the calculations what we have done for the vessel which are where the data is available with us. We have calculated and seen that this example is only for tankers and bulk carriers we have taken, and you can see the red dots are above the blue dots. The blue dots are basically the required EXI for tankers and bulk carriers. The red dots are above. That means the attained EXI is not meeting. So most of the vessels today, as you see, almost 90% of the vessels which are at least with us, basically, they have a problem that they will not be able to meet unless they adopt some measures, basically. And the range in which the measures are required to adopt it may range from 55 to 75%, which may lead to reduction of speed from 15 to 5%, basically. So this slide is an important slide. Here we are talking about the CII part and the new regulation, again, which is coming from the operational energy efficiency measure. Here we see that in 2023, when this regulation comes into force, already you have to have the reduction of 5%, basically, which from the 2019 fuel database, which is there, 5% reduction, which people should have taken into account, but not many people must have taken into account. So there is something to be done on the operational efficiency measure so that you meet this. Otherwise, it is quite possible the rating which are given A, B, C, D, E. There is a once you calculate that, we have given example over here for a certain ship where the required CII part is, let us say, if it is 10 and the attained EXI comes to 9, she falls into B category. But then, as and when the period lapses, basically the same ship, because of no further improvement, may go to C, D, and E, and that becomes a discouraging factor for the ship owner, basically. So the next slide we have taken again from our database, which is available with us. We have taken the fuel consumption data of 2020, and we have tried to use the data. If in case nothing is done, what happens in 21, 22, and 23? We can see that the ships are moving from more towards D and E category. And you can see in 2023, the percentage falling into D and E category roughly comes around 54%, whereas when you see in 2020, they are roughly around 44%, basically. So what is happening if nothing is being done? These ships which are in A, B, and C start going to D and E, which the IMO discourages from the point that they don't want a ship to have a rating, continuous rating in D category for more than 2 times or in E category. And that becomes an issue which needs to be addressed by using the energy saving devices, basically. So these are the factors which are available. Basically, we can use, improve operation. There was a SEAM, if you look at that, SEAM part 1 was there basically, but we never used SEAM part 1. It was kept on board. Not many ship owners or managers used it, but these are the things which can be used. We can list it over here, and we can see that how the operational efficiency can be improved. Here I have talked about something on the biofuels and the alternate fuels. Again, alternate fuels part, I have not discussed in detail, but I'll say that the industry is working on this, but it requires a good approach by various range of industry people, governments, lending institutions, plant, engine manufacturers, yards. They need to come together because they need to look into what the advantages and disadvantages of the various fuels which can be used, because this is it is not very clear, though we know the properties, but definitely the infrastructure needs to develop, the storage capacities need to build up. So these all things will lead to the understanding as to which will be the fuel which will be useful to us. While we know that the fuel which is seen to be visible is LNG, we have been using this fuel for a good amount of time. Our use with this is we are familiar with this basically, but we see that LNG can be a fuel which can be used for the next 5 years if in case we want to see that how best our CO2 emissions or decarbonization can take place. So this is talking about the SEAM Part 3, what all data is required, what SEAM Part 3 will contain. This will be again listed based upon when the submissions are made. It is for information only that SEAM Part 3 is required. The owners have to see that the implementation plan is aware, and they are aware of how they will set the improvement into their own system to see that the carbon intensity indicator is improved or retained, basically either in A, B, C category, but let them not go down to D or E category. And if in case they go from D to E, the corrective action plans need to be prepared and approved by the administration or the RO, basically. As far as IRS is concerned, sir, we have made fuels for these types of ships. Gas fuel vessels, LNG, LPG are available with us. We have made natural gas fuel for coastal vessels and inland vessels also. We have made guidelines on methanol fuel vessels and for fuel cell power vessel installations, high voltage use of guidelines of high voltage shore connection system for ships and for battery powered vessels. Why these guidelines are there? We have put into guidelines and not put into rules, but to see that as more and more experience will be gained, we'll be adding them to see that how best then we incorporate them in rules basically. So this talks about what we have done till now, again with the use of the industry. We are thankful to the industry to help us do something on this action. We have been able to run 2 cement carriers using the B20 biofuel, wherein we attained a reduction of CO2 by almost 7% basically, and there was no impact on NOx or SOx basically. That is also a good point. We are working with the yard and the engine manufacturer to have hydrogen power cell vessels ready by this year, and we should be able to have such a ship operating. And we have also operated one first vessel basically, which is on this Cochin KMRL, which is Cochin Metro Rail Limited, basically, where it is the hybrid propulsion has been used, and we have been successfully utilized the lithium-ion battery for operation of such a vessel. And we are working on the approval of these lithium-ion batteries once they are going to be manufactured in our country, basically. So the last slide talks about what IRIS can do for the industry. We have prepared a web-based electronic tool which can help us to do the EXI calculation. It is simple. You feed the data, it is available. And if the attained EXI less than the required EXI, the technical file is prepared and can be submitted straight away to IRIS for approval. And we can undertake these EXI assessments, issue you IEC certificate. We can help you what energy saving devices can be fitted by using our CFD analysis. We have also prepared the CII tool, which can be used again for measurement of CII ratings basically. And at last, we can conduct various trainings and workshops like this to see that how best we can help the industry. We are geared up to see that how best in the initial phase of short-term measures, we can help the industry. And we are always open to any desire the industry may have and obtain from us, sir. Thank you, sir.
I will now request Captain Bhasin to please say his piece.
Good morning, sir, to everyone. Thanks to Mr. Ram Prasad and Gateway Media for giving us this opportunity. The subject is so technical, and I was very glad when I was approached to give this presentation, because I always maintain we are people-centric. I'm in crewing and training. And my presentation is going to take a different perspective for everyone, because there are so many learned people, panelists are here who have spoken for technical matters and going to speak further. So I'm going to show you something different. Future fuels. I put it as a digitalization and decarbonization, safety aspect. The biggest thing happening is we are definitely heading towards a digitally smart and a carbon neutral future. That is for sure. There is no going back. And the process is transformational, is not just transition, and the impact on the ship operation can be huge. So we always must keep in mind the crew and the ship, the seafarers. My presentation is going to be on something like this. I will also be skipping few things because Mr. Devli has said to be within the time. Operating geographically remotely in the vast ocean with a handful of people exposed to perils of sea. Shipping is actually aptly defined as a safety critical industry. So how robust is this transformation process? A proper risk management system in place, because that will ensure resilience. Is the safety being compromised? Now, this is the sum and substance that I will speak today. Now, what is digitalization doing? It is catalyzing a wider use of data, data-driven models. I repeat, data-driven models and remote services in shipping, leading to the improvements in efficiency and productivity. You will also notice I have put the heading instead of future fuels or decarbonization, I've said digitalization and decarbonization, because they go in hand. Same time, the industry is also trying, something is wrong in my thing. Same time, the industry is also trying to find pathways towards carbonization. In many cases, it is the digitalization that is enabling innovation in decarbonization as well. Innovative technology is central, sure, but insufficient in isolation. Why did I say that? The success of these transformation depends on people. Who are the sharp end of business? The seafarers who perform and who deliver. You may ask, what are the safety concerns in digital transformation? This is a very, very simple and beautiful diagram. System is actually a set of humans. All of us are here. We are humans. We are involved. A lot of us are involved in R&D. We are humans. So humans, organizations, technical elements that together can achieve things. The people who produce technology, who facilitate, and the technology facilitates the people back. Technology influences organizations, and organization influences people. It's a circle. Anything you do, sir, in your life, any innovation, decarbonization, heat reduction, anything. So this diagram will always stay with every R&D people all over the world. We also must appreciate why digitalization can replace manual tasks with technology. It also creates more distance between a person and an operation. That's why I use the word isolation. But at the same time, interconnected software dependent on algorithms can be susceptible to interruptions and lack human-machine interface. So the industry, what they should do, the maritime industry uses many industrial platforms that have limited standardized interface. The responsibility for this integrated software is also spread across vendors and suppliers. In the last, they lag much behind the accelerating digital developments. The safety regulation needs to be on side by side, and that is where the human comes in. Solutions. What should be done? Verification method of future systems should be based on a systematic perspective on safety that consists of people, organization, and technology that all are related to each other and their environment. As a matter of fact, close collaboration throughout the entire life cycle will greatly facilitate system integration. System assessment should generate evidence for safety. Simulations, I have put it in the bold, can play a major role. Simulation can help to test and verify safety levels of the system without creating a risk to life. Another way to conduct this verification is by using digital twins that include dynamic update on conditions and operational parameters. Now I'm coming back to the subject. I was very glad Mr. Bose and Mr. Arora spoke most of the things. So I'm not going to dwell much on the other one or two slides. Only thing, keep in mind that by latest 40% by 2030 and 70% by 2050, that the IMO has set this ambitious target. To achieve this, shipping industry needs to unite in taking urgent action. Sir, there is a growing pressure to reduce carbon emission. But the industry also started forming coalitions, launching pilot projects. But where are we going? Where have we achieved? Do we have enough data? This is the most beautiful slide. I think every person who is doing R&D should always have that. Because CO2 emission reduction potentials of individual measures. It talks about various things we can assist along with the fuel. Fuel is one of them, alternative energy source. You can see vessel size, hull shape, power propulsion systems, operations, voyage optimization, and all these do play a major role in CO2 emission. And digitalization, you all know, plays always a major role in this. While industry is exploring several alternative fuels, okay, there are 2 minutes more. Alternative fuels, including hydrogen, ammonia, but shipping leaders say they have commercial and technical limitations. Mr. Arora spoke about EEXI, very important date, sir, 1st November 22. Owners, administration, industry need to be ready for that. Something of the current thing. LNG is 20 or 25% less than the carbon intensive plan. I will read the highlighted area in yellow. It took many years for LNG to become viable. It is the only alternative we have today, and it will get us under 2030 IMO target. What happened after that? That's what we are all discussing. Other alternative fuels, hydrogen and ammonia, biofuels, methanol, ongoing research and development will tell us about future fuels of above. Well, I will not touch much on this because it was spoken briefly earlier. What are the future technology and the requirement, objective? Safety of the crew, safety of vessel environment, running of vessel efficiency, economically timely, complying with all regulatory requirements. These are the things we are going to have, all the things on the screen for the training of the people, especially structured value added courses, ample simulation exercises, knowledge sharing from experts, on the job training. You are all aware for LNG, there is a requirement for the people going on board must have 1 month sailing and 1 bunker operation. So these are good things on the job training. In conclusion, sir, digital transformation calls for system integration and the new ways of managing risk associated with complex systems. Transformation to carbon neutral shipping requires stakeholders collaborate to increase transparency and create a culture of continuous learning. Most important, both these advancements should be complemented with efforts to keep people in loop so that the innovative technology that is designed, maintained, and operated by optimally performing people in organizations that embrace holistic risk management is what will put the industry in the best position to transform itself through the digitalization and decarbonization. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Basin Sab. I will now quickly invite Mr. Sachin Kulkarni of Wärtsilä to give his introductory remarks and presentation, if any.
So good morning, dignitaries and wonderful participants this morning, and thank you Gateway Media for giving this opportunity. A lot of wise and advisory words have already come. What I'll try to do is next 5 to 7 minutes, just touch base on the future fuel parts and the fuel flexibility part of it, and how Wärtsilä can support the ship owners and the shipping industry in large. Yeah, so we have seen that IMO targets for 2030, and then it's very clear that compliance can be achieved in the short term by optimizing the vessel operations and the basically introducing the slow speed, which we call as engine power limitation. However, when we look at the IMO 2050 greenhouse gas targets and beyond, then we need to consider the introduction and the transition to the green fuel. Now, the challenge here is that there are many different options, and at this point of time, no consensus on which future fuel will be commercially available. So commercial availability depends on various factors, that is geographical location, the national interest of the particular country, legislation, and the availability of the feedstock. Now, these uncertainties create a business risk regarding the fuel availability. So there are certain factors which ship owners must be considering while taking the decision forward. The increased capex and opex associated with this, the vessel design, structure, storage, and the handling, including the complex setting in managing the cryogenic condition of the fuels and the toxicity. Then we also have the timing issue. When should one make the investment and go for another fuel? We have limited amount of shipyards, and at any point of time, it will be not feasible to upgrade all these vessels or build a new vessels at the same time. So these are the factors one needs to consider before taking the decision. So then what is the solution forward? We believe that investing in flexible fuel solution mitigate the business risk associated with the future fuel. The combustion engine is fuel agnostic. The business impact of future conversion can be reduced further by preparing the fuel tanks. So what we are talking about here is that combustion engine, basically it's important to understand that the engine doesn't really care whether we feed it LNG or ammonia. It's also important to remember when building a new ship, is the fuel supply system to be factored. This is perhaps the toughest thing to do to change during the retrofit project. And while building a new vessel, one is to think about the storage part of it. These kind of tanks used to install today need to be suitable to the transition and to use the green fuel in the future. So in Wärtsilä, we shall continue to support and supply the complete system regardless of the fuel. We are ideally positioned at this point of time to provide the complete integration solution, the complete fuel propulsion package from the tanks, the fuel supply system, the engines and propulsion. So if ship owner has a diesel engine today, and what it can be done at this point of time before we have green fuels available. So when we look at the diesel engine, there is a potential of upgrade. We can look at improvement in efficiency via different upgrades as such. We can also look at the conversion of engine to DF or HG engine and LNG, and it can derive or it can give certain amount of reduction potential, as we can see over there. Then if we have multi-fuel engine as such, then it's already an advantage position. Then we look at the improvement in efficiency via different upgrades again, and we also can look at reduced methane slip. So when we look at the milestone till 2030, there are various ways. If you look at EXI plus optimization of vessel operation plus LNG as a fuel, this could be the recommendation. And then moving forward, then 2040, and once the green fuels are available, we can look at the carbon neutral fuels. So the continuous development of technology in Wärtsilä, our future fuel roadmap is very clear. When we look at the biosynthetic methane, it contains 99% methane, and then it can readily be used in liquid form with equivalent equipment made for LNG. Then we have methanol. Its conversion package is available already for one of our engines, Z40, and pleased to share with you all that we already have then another engine, Wärtsilä 32, is already now compliant with methanol usage. We have the technology, and now we are looking at industrializing this technology on the different portfolio of Wärtsilä engines as per the market needs. When you look at the ammonia, again, there we have a technology which is capable of using ammonia. At this point of time, needed a combustion concept to maximize engine performance and the safety aspects which are currently investigated. Hydrogen, our gas engines are already able to blend hydrogen with the LNG up to 25%. And we are currently working on defining the technology for pure hydrogen and focusing on maximizing engine performance. So while this is happening, all research and development is in process. How the ship owners looks at the situation currently. So the transition fuel is something which is necessary to cope up, and for that we don't have green fuel available yet. So customer need to act, ship owner need to act now if they want to reduce this greenhouse gas emission of their vessels fleet. Conversion to LNG is one of the best option available because the multi-fuel engine opens up more options to reduce GHG emissions further in future by allowing a transition of biosynthetic methane or green ammonia or methanol when they are available. As a ship owner, what they do, what should they invest into at this point of time, and what are the operational consideration is to be done. So as typically summarized here, one is to look at into sustainability of the fuel, availability, its price. Then it's also important to see the required vessel endurance. When we look at the different fuels, due to the low volumetric density of the different fuels, the vessel endurance could be different. That needs to be considered. The tank size and the location is another important operational aspect to be considered. Blending versus pure. What are the output requirement? What are the efficiency requirements? Emission, and then along with these green fuels, then if any exhaust gas abatement is to be done. What are the system to be changed when we're looking at introducing a new fuel? So from us at the input is basically we can look at fuel gas supply system. That's very important part of the system. So there we need to look at the materials. We need to look at the very different pressures, insulation and toxicities associated. A small modification, we talk to the engine top part, fuel injection system, cylinder heads and piston tops, exhaust gas abatement like SCR, scrubbers and carbon capture depending on the particular fuel which has been looked at. And of course, importantly, safety systems, impact of marine classification on safety systems. So these are the few changes which would be associated when we are introducing the new fuel. So as a summary, what are the key takeaways from here? There is no single future fuel. There will be a whole variety in use. Investing in fuel flexibility will mitigate compliance and business risk. Wärtsilä will continue to supply a complete system regardless of fuel, and the multi-fuel engine offers a viable upgrade path to future fuels. With this, I would like to conclude my opening remarks. Thank you.
I will now invite Shri Jitendra Nimagada, CEO of Maritime Vishwasamudra Group, to make his presentation or his introductory remarks, or both.
Thank you, Anilji. A very good morning to all the fellow panelists and all the participants who are part of this inaugural webinar conducted by Future Fuels. I would like to appreciate and commend the entire Future Fuels team for bringing out this particular relevant and then most burning topic right now to the forefront of the discussion. Let me just quickly run through like what is the current status and what are we looking at from the emissions point of view. So just a quick numbers from the global maritime industry. It emits close to about 940, 950 million tons of CO2 per annum, which is almost equivalent to what entire Germany emits in a year. So it also accounts for about 2.5% of the entire global GHG emissions. So with the entire focus on the emissions and then its reductions across industries, across the globe for all the countries put together. So there is a lot of focus on the maritime industry to reduce its emissions, considering that it plays a significant part in the emissions that come into the environment. So the IMO has brought out a strategy on the reduction of this GHG emissions, keeping 2008 as a base year. So we are looking at a target of a 40% reduction of the CO2, or a 1/3 of reduction of the overall emissions by 2030. And by 2050, there is a target of reduction by 50% as far as the overall GHG emissions, and a 70% reduction in the CO2 intensity. Of course, having said that, there has been a mounting pressure that the decarbonization has to be 100% by 2050. So this is something where the industry has taken steps in terms of moving ahead with this particular revised target, or I would say the informal target. And we are also seeing a lot of initiatives which is being taken by the industry. So what are the kind of future fuels that are currently on the radar in terms of meeting this kind of decarbonization targets? So we are talking about LNG as an immediate intermediate fuel in terms of reducing the CO2 emissions. And there have been a lot of vessels which has already been flying commercially, bunkering happening. We are talking about other fuels like methanol, hydrogen, ammonia coming into the picture, into the frame. Biofuel is also the other future fuel options. So whether anything has been finalized, whether something has been taken up by the industry as a standard, well, it depends on several factors. So it depends on the kind of technology on board and offshore. What is the kind of energy density that each of this fuel delivers? The safety requirements of the vessel, of the onshore, as well as the crew. The scalability of this particular technology and the availability of this fuel across the globe. The ease of transportation from place to place, and of course, the financial viability. Of course, these are the major factors which will determine which of these fuels or a combination of fuels will be becoming as the options for the future fuels. However, the jury is still out. I mean, this is still some time, at least in my mind, at least it's about 5 to 10 years away before a fuel gets, or a combination of fuel gets finalized and the industry moves towards its standardization. But what about now? My slide or my presentation talks about the current and now. So while we are discussing about the current, the future challenges and the kind of technologies or fuels which will be available, right now we are talking about at least 1/3 of the entire vessels flying in the world today have a life of up to anywhere between 10 to 15 years. You can see this in this particular slide. Sorry, in this particular slide, the age of these vessels from its categories. So while we are discussing about the future fuels, what about now? I think that is an extremely important thing, saying that what is the transitionary option or a viable solution which is required for the existing vessels before a new age vessels or new age fuels becomes a gold standard for the industry. So that is where we present a product, a combustion catalyst called Fuel Spec by the Vishwasamudra Group. So what is Fuel Spec? So it is a patented fuel-borne combustion catalyst, and it's an organometallic compound, which is orange in color. It's basically a liquid, which when combined with the fuels can reduce the emission reduction. I mean, can reduce the emissions of the particulate matter of CO, CO2, and NOx. So what does it contain? It contains basically the iron and magnesium at a scale of nanometers, less than 10 nanometers. And the medium, that is the lubricity agent, is a carboxylate ester. A few more points in terms of its pour point, flash point, density of the product. So what is its functionality, or what does it do to help in reducing this kind of emissions? So it basically improves the thermodynamic efficiency of the combustion of the hydrocarbons and through a catalytic process. So it's a patented and a proprietary technology based on electromagnetic emission spectra complementarity. So what does it do? It actually leads to a complete combustion of fuel. So normally in any kind of combustion engines, you'll always have certain amount of hydrocarbons coming out as unburnt hydrocarbons. So the combustion is not 100%. That is where also leads to excess amount of emissions, whether it is the soot or particulate matter, the UHCs, NOx, CO, etc. So because of this complete combustion by the fuel spec, there is a reduction in NOx, what we have observed from the empirical results as well as the field trials, by up to 10 to 30%. Similarly, an emission reduction in CO by up to 40%, and a particulate matter reduction has been up to 90%. Similarly, there is a reduction in the UHCs, and also it leads to lower carbon deposits in the equipment. So how does fuel spec work? So fuel spec actually has a very high miscibility. That is, it gets very easily mixed with the fuel. And in the pre-combustion process, the fuel spec gets completely and homogeneously mixed with the fuel through the compressed air. During the first phase of combustion, that is the actual combustion which happens for the hydrocarbons in the engine. So normally what happens is the combustion happens and the fuel gets burnt, and then there is certain amount of energy which gets wasted because the entire energy doesn't get transformed or translated into 100% combustion. That is where this iron and magnesium components of fuel spec actually stores the energy, that is the peak heat, during the first phase of combustion, and it releases that heat in the second phase of combustion, or the second half of the combustion. So magnesium, what I mentioned about the electromagnetic complementarity, so magnesium captures the energy and the iron also captures the energy. Iron initially releases that energy to the hydrocarbons, and similarly the higher spectrum magnesium transfers that energy to iron, and then subsequently iron back into the fuel. This is what leads to complete combustion of the fuel. So that is the reason why, or in a normal process, the hydrocarbons doesn't get sufficient heat for full combustion. So with this catalyst, it basically captures the peak heat and then simply transfers it to the fuel during the second half of the combustion. And hence there are no temperature hikes and the heat transfer is more evenly distributed. And as I did mention, because of its excellent miscibility, the fuel spec gets completely mixed and it has a greater surface area for transfer of energy into the hydrocarbons. So how is it used? Basically, do we require any additional equipment or any infrastructure, both on board the vessels or on shore? Absolutely nothing. It's just a very simple mixing ratio of 1:4,000. So for every 4,000 liters of fuel, 1 liter of this fuel spec has to be added. You can see the pictorial representation of how simple it is in terms of the addition. It's just a direct mixture based on this 1:4,000 ratio. So all types of fuel that goes into either the vessels or the heavy mining equipment, the logistics industries, or the fuel-fired boilers. So all of these fuels can be compatible fuels for usage of fuel spec, whether you're talking about HFO, VLSFO, MGO, HFHSD, HSD, LDO. So is it, of course, one of the first question which comes to most of your minds, I'm sure, is it safe? What happens if we mix this particular fuel into of this particular catalyst into the fuel? Does it damage the engine? Does it create any kind of other side effects? Absolutely none. So first and foremost, this average particle size of this ferrous and magnesium is less than 10 nanometers. In fact, it varies between 5 and 10 nanometers. So the metal components are less than 1/5 or to the 1/10 of the maximum EPA limit prescribed by the US Environmental Protection Agency. Hence, there is absolutely no damage to either the equipment nor to the environment. And second, the magnesium, which is there in this fuel catalyst, acts as a cleaning and a lubricating agent. And both the melting point of both these metal additives, that is the ferrous and magnesium, are very high, more than 1200 degrees. So there is absolutely no question of a melting or sticking inside the engine. And the fuel spec is just a catalyst. It doesn't interact or alter or modify the properties of neither the fuel or any other additives which are being used complementarily in the engines. Hence, there is absolutely no question of clogging or fouling the fuel purification systems, the piping systems, or any other pumping systems. So, as I did mention, basically the fuel spec is non-reactive, neither with the fuel nor with any other additives. It has a very long shelf life without any kind of degradation of its quality, either on a standalone basis or even when mixed with the fuel. It has an excellent miscibility, so the mixing of this fuel spec with the various types of fuel that we mentioned is extremely easy and doesn't require any additional knowledge or technical equipment or infrastructure. It has a very high flash point, so very easy for transportation, and it basically also improves the lubricity. So it has the approval with the US Environmental Protection Agency. And as I did mention, it is less than the 1/5 or 1/10 of the maximum EPA limit. The Southwest Research Institute of US has tested this particular product when mixed with the fuel, and it shows that this particular catalyst doesn't either degrade or, in fact, rather not even modify the fuel characteristics. The NOC has already been obtained by Wärtsilä for usage in their engines. I would also like to thank Mr. Sachin and the entire Wärtsilä team for that. And it is also approved by the GE Energy for usage in their liquid fuel-fired gas turbines. And it has been successfully used in various types of vessels, talking about bulkers, bulk containers, general cargo vessels, VLCC tankers, both in Wärtsilä MAN and Caterpillar vessels, in Caterpillar engines. And the fuel spec is successfully tested, and all its properties have been, and the results have been verified by the IIT Hyderabad. So a very quick comparison. I'll not go too much into the details since I'm already running beyond the scheduled time. So the fuel spec vis-a-vis the other additives that we are talking about, whether it is alcohol-based ethers or hybrids like fuel detergents, oxyhydrogens, and the acetones. So fuel spec scores on almost every parameter, whether it is the mixing capability in fuel, the viscosity, the working mechanism, kinds of fuels that it can be used, flashpoints in terms of transportation, and the lubricity. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation. Just a very small snapshot of our group. So our group, Vishwasamudra Group, is a multilateral business conglomerate, which is headquartered in Hyderabad and spread across entire India and various other countries like Singapore, US, UAE, other Middle Eastern countries, Germany, Belgium, etc. And we pan various verticals starting from infrastructure, construction, logistics, shipping, maritime, manufacturing, commodity trading, security services, port operations, and real estate. So thank you so much.
So I would like to now invite Sri Mukesh Kumar, who's the lead personnel manager for Bernard Schulte, to come in and give his introductory remarks and presentation, if any, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning. So basically, I'll just talk with the existing ships, which is running, like basically future fuels that I'm talking about 2030, 50, and I'm sure with the struggle, everyone will achieve that. But present scenario, how to decarbonize to a minimum the present ships which are running, because these are conventional engines and few electronic engines are already in the market. The dual fuel engines are also there. We BSM managing few dual fuel engines, which is LNG on the long voyage, and then slowly we are coming on whatever minimum we can do to the environment. So energy efficiency technology in the present marine sector. So basically, if we all the ship owner, the present scenario, if you look at it, I have few points like the first one is this already, I think one of our panelists have already told this thing, that air lubrication system. Then I have wind assisted propulsion, flatteners, rotors, kite and sail propulsion, marine battery system, that is energy storage and all, waste heat and energy recovery. Then EGCS, like most of the ships, I think we have installed it, that is exhaust gas cleaning system. Then we have a efficiency of the propeller retrofit, then efficiency of the rudder retrofit, existing system equipment auxiliary saving technologies, then shaft generators, then engine tuning, trim optimization, coating and anti-foul evolution, cold ironing that is sure best power and all, HVAC optimization, insulation improvements. So basically, with these, I believe many ships, they are not using this even if this technology are available on their ships. So if we emphasize the present managers and ship owners and technical to make sure that the ships which are running, they go through all this so that by the time the future fuels are implemented, that IMO is trying their hard by implementing certain regulations and these things. So by that time, at least we can minimize the carbon level in the environment. That would be a much help for everyone. And basically, in fact, I believe the Wärtsilä has already come back with that is WinGD, that is a XDF engine. So slowly, I believe everyone is trying their level hard. And I think rest of the things, I think my panelists have already told, so no point repeating the same thing. Okay, thank you very much.
Well, that was super quick, Mukeshji. Thank you very much. You are probably going to be instrumental in getting us back on schedule. So before I, jump on to the questions, this I think it has been extremely helpful even for me, and I'm sure the next few minutes of question answer session, what Mr. Ram Prasad will conduct will be of some use. I have a few points that need consideration and need the attention of all. The first and the foremost point that needs to be spoken about, and which I did not see the other speak on, is the cost of getting all of this done. Now, this is going to become a major issue for ship owners. Perhaps not so much for the larger ones, but definitely for the medium size and the small sized owners. I think there is a need for us to sit down and assess what will it cost even somebody such as a Great Eastern, or even somebody such as a small ship owner who probably owns a mini bulk carrier or a barge. And Bosab, I am going to ask you soon after this to let us know whether IMO, since you participated and represented India for several years on this, whether IMO has been able to touch on this issue. But I will come to you very quickly, sir. The other issue that I think we all need to bear in mind is, while all of these technologies and countries are willing to come forward and provide technology transfer, quite candidly, I have not yet seen any country coming forward and saying, I will give you this technology, pay me after 10 years. And I am not sounding unprofessional here. The world is ostensibly working towards making this whole space a green space. And yet commercial considerations seem to play an important role in all of this. And surely commercial considerations should play their role where necessary. But I think if we are all talking about some kind of a lofty objective of achieving reduction of carbon, I think there is a need, and our Prime Minister also touched on this in the past COP, if all of you heard his speech. And there is therefore a need for a technology transfer to be accompanied by transfer of technology and IP on a long-term basis, where the small ship owner is able to benefit out of this new technology that comes in, and they are able to comply. I would also draw attention of everybody to the finding of IRS, which Mr. Vijay Arora touched on in his presentation, where he said that 90% of the vessels will not meet EEXI. Arora Sahab, I would like you to also touch in the next few minutes, how would a ship owner go about doing this? And in that same context, both Sahab, the experiments of Great Eastern, I know that Great Eastern and Sanmar, these are two of our member companies who have taken some steps in biofuels and hybrid fuels, etc. So I would like to also request you, sir, to also speak. I would also very importantly, Basim Saab, you have drawn on the issue about seafarers awareness, and I would also like to take this opportunity to let you know that this is exceedingly important, the training of the seafarers, making them aware of the new systems, and no doubt MSC is a world-class company because they have people like you thinking on these lines. Lastly, I would also, and this somebody else also I think asked in the chat, and if Mr. Kulkarni, if you get the time, if you can also touch on, when I got into shipping, one of the things that we used to do, we used to operate container ships, we had these power packs, which used to be put on board for the purpose of, say, our reefers or something of that sort. Is there a role for power packs in propulsion, etc.? It may sound very silly, throw the question out of the window, but this comes from someone who does not know. So I would invite then Mr. Bose first, then Mr. Arora, and then Mr. Kulkarni to kindly give your comments, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Devli. I would respond to your question specifically. You asked about that in the IMO rulemaking process, is the issue of cost impact on ship owners are being taken into account, and what kind of cost is going to come? Okay, it's, now the initial strategy, the answer is yes. Answer is yes. In the strategy that is being revised now and has to be completed by 2023 to decarbonize international shipping sometime around middle of the century, the date is highly debated now there. So there is an element in this IMO GHG rulemaking process, impact assessment on states. That means that is there going to be an adverse impact on socioeconomic condition of states? In that case, that rule should not go forward, or it has to be addressed. That means so that element is there. And during this process, all the member states are working that how feasible it is and what kind of cost impact it will have, and so that the reduction strategy can be framed accordingly. And cost impact is going to be there. I just want to clarify one doubt, because since we are talking about decarbonization, and some may be aware and some may not be aware, there is maybe confusion. Methanol, we are talking about methanol, we are talking about hydrogen. Huge amount of methanol is available now, so is hydrogen, and it is being used for industrial purposes. But these are all procured from fossil sources. And fuel consists of carbon and hydrogen. So these are, either of these or both of these are required to produce a fuel. So when you make a zero carbon fuel, when you produce or manufacture these fuel, methanol, from a feedstock which is sustainable, for example, biological sources, or splitting water with electricity and producing hydrogen, capturing carbon from funnel or atmosphere, and then combining together, and you have a methanol, that's the zero carbon fuel. And this costs money. For example, today the VLS of a cost is somewhere around, food prices have gone up, so $750. per ton, and methanol produced from renewable sources will be $2,000. So there are talks about market-based measure. I mean, it's this under discussion in IMO that you have to put additional cost on fossil fuel to make these things comparable to make it. And there is a lot of political, attenuation on this particular issue, and we will see how it goes forward. So for the shipowner side, with respect to the challenges, huge amount of challenges exist. Ricardo, a consultancy firm which worked on behalf of industry associations, they presented a paper in the last MEPC where they have identified 120 challenges. Many of the challenges has been covered in the previous presentations, human training, safety, then containment, and around 260 research projects are going on. So, and also, we are, as shipowners, we are dependent on the shore infrastructures. 87% of investment to decarbonize shipping has to happen on land. That's going to happen on fuel production. How do you produce that methanol to split the water and produce hydrogen from electrolyzer? You have to get the power from renewable sources, which wind power or solar power. So investment in all those. So ship owners can't do it alone. Today, a car owner, there are rules for car manufacturing standards. So car owner, he buys a car which is complying with the rules, and government is putting up charging station all over the world. But for ship owner, it is different. We are being asked that, no, you must comply with this decarbonization, and there is no rule on fuel producers that, okay, on this date, this should be the fuel standards. The carbon intensity should be lower. It's not there, it's our. So that's the problem here. And we need collaboration of every sector of the industry. Fuel producers, engine makers are doing it, we know, and shipbuilders. So all these, it's required. And another thing, so yes, I suppose I have answered your question with respect to the cost, and and willingness for cargo owners to pay higher freights. Today, if you have a expensive zero carbon fuel, but for example, there are ship owners who are making methanol powered ships running on renewable fuel, it's higher cost. And then if he doesn't find the charterers, then what does he do? He's got a dual fuel engine, he will run on normal fuel and not the expensive fuel. So charterers' willingness to pay the extra freight cost. And coming back to the second part of the question, that what the companies like Rediston, etc., are doing. So we are doing for about last 9 years or so, we have been doing various things like retrofitting propulsion pre-swilled devices, then hub vortex removers, and very low, for us, maintenance of the hull is very important. So we apply expensive high performance coatings, which keeps the hull clean so the fuel consumption is as least as possible. Then we are replacing all the traditional fluorescent and halogen lights with LED lights on our ships. And we have the software, in-house built software from which we can see the hull condition. And any hull getting foul, we get the indication, so we get it cleaned very quickly. And propeller polishing 6 to 9 months, and biofuel trial, we are going to do it very shortly. We have identified one ship to do that trial. And we always looking out for new technologies to fit on our ships. And we are looking out into the market and into the sea, how the renewable fuels, the lower carbon fuels come into the market, because we are in the tramp shipping, and bunkering facility is absolutely essential for these kind of fuels. So we are always on the lookout for new kinds of fuels. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Aurora, sir, if you can quickly touch on what Indian ship owners or what those 90% should be doing.
So this we are talking about two things basically. First, the basic requirement for a ship owner to continue his existing ship to operate is EXI. That's the first point. CII will be coming later, but CII is also inbuilt into the EXI, what I said. So for the EXI part, as I said, that the whatever ship we have calculated for these 40 vessels, which are still not meeting, as I shown on the screen, the EPL will help them to achieve reduction so that they can attain EXI, can come to a value lesser than the required EXI. Only thing is that they need to see that whatever speed reduction which will take place in the range of 5 to 12% of 15%, that speed is going to be acceptable to the charters, and then they can achieve that, they can have their attained EXI met to the required EXI. Suppose in such a certain cases where the attained EXI still does not meet by applying the EPL basically, then in that case, there are other measures which they need to look into, which are simple in nature, like we said, the use of propeller boss tap fins, or they can use some duct around the propeller. These are simple methods, or if in case the bulber is not fitted, basically they can fit that also. And after fitment of that, these are energy saving devices, which I said, the CFD analysis can be done to see that the V reference can be obtained, and then we can calculate the attained EXI basically. So the ship owner needs to understand 2-3 things basically. EPL reduction is known to him, how much he can have, and whether attained EXI is coming equal to or less than the required EXI. If it is not, then he has to do something, and that he should do before the vessel dry dock. Now we are already in 2022. If the vessels are going to be dry docked this year, and he has already calculated that, and he finds that EPL is not helping them, he needs to see that what energy saving devices can be fitted now so that he can achieve it. Otherwise, it will be difficult for him to obtain the energy efficiency certificate basically. Second part, I said that while the owners are looking for EXI, they need to also start thinking about the CII part basically, because CII is something like as it is an operational efficiency. In India, we are running ships which are old, and it is very difficult, and it is not easy to see that how the operational efficiency can be improved year on year, which the IMO expects from these ships. So in that case, my request to all the ship owners will be that when you are calculating the EXI and the CII, try to see that if something needs to be done on the EXI part also, that means if any other energy saving devices can be fitted, which will help you tomorrow to have a CII, improved CII, please do that basically. Again, this combination of calculations we are able to do for you, and we are doing also for ship owners. We are telling them what to be done, and this exercise can go on. They need to think about 2 things. If the EXI hasn't met, but the operation efficiency they want to improve at later stage, that also can be done. Let us say dry dock is going to fall due next year, but you have met the EXI by EPL reduction. Don't worry. Next year, you can fit some energy saving devices at the time of dry dock so that you stay in A, B, C category, the CII part, so that your vessels can continue to operate for the period of at least 2026, because 26 onwards, we don't know the reductions which are available, and these reductions will be decided only in the year 2026. So I think I have been, that's what I wanted to share with the people on the EXI part.
Right. Thank you, sir. Kulkarni Sahib, if you have a quick comment on power pack, or
Yeah. So there are
take.
Yeah, so there are a couple of points I could see there. One is power pack, and one was on the tank size and capacity. Let me quickly touch base on both of these. So as far as I've shown, basically, when it comes to the existing engines, whether it's a diesel engine or whether it's a dual fuel, multi-fuel engine, so typically there is a potential upgrade possibilities there that we can improve the efficiency of these engines via upgrades to power pack. If it is diesel engine, then we can look at the power pack upgrades, fuel injection system modification, and certain changes in turbocharger. So that's for the diesel engine. If you look at the multi-fuel engine, so there the fuel injection system anyway is taken care. Then what you're looking at typically is an upgrades to power pack and the turbocharger. So yeah, it is possible to upgrade that as such. So that's an answer to the power pack thing. The second point on the tank compromising the capacity, yes, it's a very important aspect and dimension. When we look at the characteristics and properties of different fuels, it's important. If you look at ammonia, we're talking about the corrosivity and toxicity. Typically, when we look at LNG, we have these nickel alloys tanks, but when can ammonia take that? No. So then we can look at the readiness by having these stainless steel tanks already fit in, so that you are ready. So one is the storage, and the second is the basically the treatment to it. And when we look at the decision on the capacity, it's important to factor that in the design stage itself. Again, there are various segments in which you operate. If you're looking at short sea shipping, then there are a lot of options possible, because then you can have the smaller tanks having the possibility of bunkering. But looking at this hydrogen and ammonia, when the endurance days are more as such, so from that point of view, short sea shipping, it could benefit. If you're deep sea shipping, then it could be a bigger tank needs to be installed. So all this factor needs to be considered while we are designing the vessel as such. And that's why we recommend that while you can build a vessel with a dual fuel engine today, but then you can only accommodate the tank material and the capacity at this stage, so that you have a least modification which will be required to be done subsequently.
Okay, thank you. So over to you, Mr. Ramprasad.
Thank you, sir. So there are some questions and there are some comments. So what I'll do is quickly run through the questions first. And I suggest the speakers, the panelists themselves figure out who would be the best suited to answer the question. The first question is Nilesh Tucker. When calculating EXI for a vessel, if the vessel is using LNG as fuel, or methane slips addressed?
So I'll answer this question if you don't mind, sir. I'll answer this question. So currently it is, I'll say the answer is no, sir. Currently the answer is no. Only thing what is being done, EXI will not be impacted. If in case you want to address the methane slip, there are some combustion efficiency can be obtained where you can improve the combustion and reduce the methane slip. That is the technology can be used, but that will impact only the CII part. But the EXI part will not be. Right now there is nothing on this issue.
Gunit Bandal, how is the use of biofuels taken into account when calculating attained EEXI? In case a vessel is unable to bunker biofuels due to non-availability, how does it affect its compliance with EEXI?
Can I answer that, Mr. Ramprasad?
Yeah.
Okay. Currently, the carbon footprint of fuels is considered based on tank to wake. That means on the ship, whatever happens. It doesn't take into account full life cycle of the fuel. That means from production to bringing it, processing, etc., etc. So burning a biofuel, there is carbon and there is GHG emission. So you don't get the benefit of it being a sustainable product. That is why in IMO now full life cycle assessment guideline is being developed, so that you take the complete carbon footprint from fuel production, extraction, to propeller, complete. So answer is that some marginal benefit may be the CO2 emissions. So they will go by there is carbon in biofuel, and that will be taken into account in the calculation. Thank you.
Thank you. This is an anonymous post. Considering methane slip effect in LNG fuel engines and that methane has a massively higher GWP compared to CO2, will LNG continue to be a viable alternative for reducing GHG emissions?
Yeah, I can take this. So today, if you look at Wärtsilä, we having more than 2 gigawatt basically worth of technology in the market, and where the methane slip is just less than 1 gram per kilowatt hour as such. And there are, as Mr. Arora said, that there are technologies which are possible to with, looking at the combustion efficiency there. So typically, when we say we are running fewer engines at higher load is preferable than running more engines at a low load as such. And again, certain hybridization also can help the process. So yes, it's a topic which has been well addressed, and we have technologies today to take care of that.
Thank you. Sanjay Kelkar, how benefit of technology, example PBCF, can be qualified by class/RO when used in conjunction with EPL to arrive at EEXI value for the technical file. What if such changes are made post 1st January 2023 during scheduled docking?
Yes, I'll answer this question, sir. The question in respect of talks about post January 2023. The post January 2023, whatever impact they want to do, in that case, they should have definitely ensured that EPL has resulted in obtaining the attained EXI as less than the required EXI. And the impact of the technology is that we can use CFD analysis to see that the CFD analysis will help us to what extent the impact is there to reduce the resistance of the ship, so that it helps us to calculate the V reference. The issue starts with the V reference is not available once the energy saving devices are superimposed on the ship, basically, and we can calculate the V reference without going for sea trials, basically, because sea trial is, again, you are going to carry out and burn fuel and then calculate, but V reference can then be done with using the CFD analysis. That is how the technology can be used to determine, and we can determine the EXI. But the question which was raised was after January 2023, but you have to ensure that you can use it provided you have met the EXI before January 2023, so that you don't have to think of. You can always use this, which will be useful to you at the time of CII part. It will improve the operation efficiency.
Thank you. Question from Mr. Surendra Roy. I would like to know comments and views of ship owners or stakeholders on how to deal with emissions when vessel is actually doing no cargo transportation, when vessel is on ballast leg of the voyage, doing tank cleaning, waiting at anchorage, or is at berth.
Can I answer that question? Because we represent that particular sector. Now, this issue is being discussed in the correspondence group, and I can inform some issues have been taken into account as of now, and it will be only finalized in next MEPC 78, which is in June, July this year.
June.
So before that, it cannot be set for definite. But for definite, anchorage stay, if you have, that is, will not be taken into account in deducting the consumption from CII calculation. Bad weather also will not be taken into account. But cargo heating, yes, that will be is on. So there are certain elements like this which are still on, but this we will only know for sure after at MEPC 78. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This question, how important is ammonia fuel for marine industry?
Yeah, ammonia is one of the zero carbon fuels, which is very much being considered. It has got advantages and disadvantages, toxic safety issues. So, it's too short a time to describe everything. Okay, thank you. But it is one of the important ones and being looked at. Thank you.
I will just add one point, Ramprasadji, with your permission. I think Mr. Sachin Kulkarni touched on this, that one of the issues that will decide what will be our future fuel will be what is convenient for the country and what is also politically pushed. So this is something which I think is, at least I think it's a very, very important point. Each country will push an agenda of fuels that will be convenient for it to produce and cheaper for it to produce. So that I think will be a point that we have to consider.
So I have last couple of questions. One is from Rupali Joshi. Alternate fuel storage is also a big task. What facilities required for their storage, and can it be stored at ambient conditions? What specific gravity need to be maintained and used? It commercially needs infrastructure. As of now, where are we? This is again, I think, a big question.
So maybe let me attempt to address this. So basically, as I talked about, that fuel gas storage and supply is very important aspect of this. And then each fuel will have its own things. So today we are talking about, as I mentioned earlier, that the tanks for ammonia, that is still tanks, because it cannot be used, the tanks which are given for the LNG ones as such. Similarly, we have to also look at the flammability when we talk about hydrogen, and then what kind of a pack needs to be prepared, manufactured. So all these dimensions will come depending on what fuel you're using, and then what kind of a characteristics you need to address. So it will vary depending on the fuel.
Thank you. The last set of questions are to Mr. Jitendra. I want him to note down and answer in single go. So how does fuel purification by purifies affect the few components, Fe and Mg concentration? That is one, it refers to fuel spec product. Then will fuel spec give us credit in our EXI and CI? What is the effectiveness of on biofuels and the HSE related issues in hand? Of course, cost is something they have asked. That would be best shared one-on-one, I believe. Yeah, quickly, Mr. Jitendra.
Yeah, thank you. So I did mention that the fuel spec doesn't either interact nor react with either the fuel nor with the any other additives. So it is basically just a combustion catalyst which transfers the heat energy in a much more efficient manner so that the unburnt hydrocarbons are completely reduced. So to that extent, there will be absolutely no impact on the any other additives, including the purifiers. And the second part with respect to the biofuels, again, the you must have seen that the fuel spec can be used with a wide range of fuels, starting from VLSFO, HFO, HSD, HFHSD, MGO. So the impact is the same or more or less the same on biofuels, that it ensures a complete combustion of the hydrocarbons, including the biofuels. Now, from the HSE point of view, it is a non-corrosive, non-reactive, and a high flash compound, and hence it is absolutely safe in terms of its usage, in terms of storage, and then transportation. But of course, good practices have to be followed with like any other compound. That, for example, we should take necessary measures in terms of avoiding spillages, etc. But otherwise, there are no significant HSE risks in handling fuel spec. The last point which I want to also discuss with, or maybe also pose a question to Arora Saab, is that yes, fuel spec definitely reduces the amount of GHG emissions ranging from NOx, CO, CO2, soot, and unburnt hydrocarbons. So there is a definite reduction. So we believe that it should lead to a reduction in or the improvement in the rating. And we would also request the views of Arora Saab with respect to the CII as well as EXI ratings on this.
Yeah, and this in the use of fuel spec, as you rightly said, that it is going to improve the combustion efficiency. And from that point of view, it may not impact the EXI part basically, but definitely it will impact the CII part, because once the efficiency is better, the fuel is burned, I'm getting more power from the same fuel. So that means I'll be burning less fuel to get the same power basically. In that way, indirectly, I'm getting an improvement in my CII ratings basically. That is the advantage you will get, but not on EXI part.
Thank you very much, Anil Devli sir. That's the end of Q&A. What questions I have?
Right.
We are 5 minutes past our scheduled time. Not bad. So I leave it to you to conclude the session so that the next session panelists are already there.
Yeah, so thank you very much. I think we have kicked off a session where I do not know if we have been entirely successful, but the attempt has been to try and disseminate information, ensure that those who were listening were able to benefit out of this. We are aware that this is a minefield. One has to talk technical as much as one talks about these issues generally. But we do hope that we have been able to convey a few thoughts, generate a few ideas, and generate interest in this so that in time to come, this very, very important topic is going to get the attention of policymakers and all of you within the industry. Once again, I would like to thank Mr. Bose, Mr. Vijay Arora, Captain Basin, Mr. Sachin Kulkarni, Mr. Jitendra Nimagada, and Mr. Mukesh Kumar, and also Future Fuels for the effort that they've taken in setting this up. And we are looking to more and more these kind of sessions coming in. Of course, there's a section that follows ours, so I'm keenly going to listen to the speakers that come into the next session. Once again, thank you very much and have a wonderful day.
We continue to continue this dialogue through our magazine, and maybe we will be reaching out to you with further questions that we are getting from the stakeholders. And also we encourage you to share with us updates and articles and interviews so that we can be a platform for disseminating this information. With that note, on behalf of Future Fuels, I also thank all the panelists, each one of them by name, and especially moderator, Mr. Anil Devli.